Hello, Jekyll Knight here. I've been meaning to do this video so freaking long ago. A lot of you have seen my video game collection, which it hasn't really changed much. Some of the newer old games I've gotten some, traded in some. But for the most part, my old school games like my Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, I haven't really added any just because I stopped collecting. Because when I get into collecting shit, as you can tell, it gets out of hand. So I showed you all of the video games I own, but I've never shown anyone all the video game consoles I own. And I'll include portables too, like Game Boy and stuff. But I figured I'd get this one out of the way. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, but this is an FC Twin unit. You can stick Nintendo games in the back, Super Nintendo in the front, and it uses Super Nintendo controllers. So you can have it's like two video game consoles in one. That is awesome. I mean, what can outdo this? Well, how about this? The Retron 5. I don't even know if they make these. I think they still do. But I bought this at the time when, it came out. It can play 5 different things. Actually, it can play more than that, I believe. And then they found out that they used like emulators illegally without giving the owners permission, and they had a lawsuit or something. I don't know if they still make this, but it's Retron 5. Play Famicom, NES, SNES, and Genesis. So we can actually play all of those games. And it can even play Game Boy Advance. How cool is that? So this one runs off emulation, which adds a little bit of latency, but oh well. Like, you can't play Punch-Out, but you can play other games. And it comes with a wireless controller for new schoolers. Or if you don't want to play with a wireless controller, check it out. On the side, a Super Nintendo input, a Nintendo input, a Genesis input. You can use the original controllers, which I have plenty of, to play on the Retron 5. I'm just getting those two systems out of the way because they're not really official systems. So let's go ahead and get started with the official systems. I got a hiccup. Okay, my first system that I have is the Nintendo Entertainment System that still works. And, it doesn't work flawlessly. I mean, every so often you'll get like a bad game. You have to like wiggle it in and stuff. But it overall works. But sometimes if it doesn't work properly, you know what I'm saying? I have a backup. Another working Nintendo Entertainment System. And of course, this came out at the end when Super Nintendo came out. And that is the Nintendo Entertainment System version 2. So basically it has the controllers, power shit. Put the game on top. And like, for example, let's go. The only way you could really play games as a kid was through this RF switch, which went through the coaxial. Or if there's barely TVs that were advanced that could do like that kind of audio video. So for this one, you only had the RF switch option. And then there was like the switch on the left is the channel 3 or 4. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're probably too young to even remember how technology was in the 80s. It has came in advance so much. Now on with the Super Nintendo. According to this camera, you can't really see, but if you look at the Super Nintendo and the area around it, that's gray. That's how the system was. This is an original Super Nintendo, and what happened is they used the wrong plastic on the outside, which over time turned kind of, I don't know. See, that's gray, and it's kind of gray, like, I don't know, orangish, I don't know. It basically gets color damaged over time. So they made a newer one, and the reason why I have these in plastic is because I have a shit ton of spiders in my house. I don't want to get them all infested and shit. So this one has like the right plastic on everything, and it's pure gray, the way it's supposed to be. And of course, just like the Nintendo at the end of their run, they decided to make a cheaper and smaller one, which has a power eject button. And this one, I believe, could not play Game Genie because Nintendo hated Game Genie and cheating devices. And they did whatever they could to stop that. So that's a smaller one. Check the back of these really quick. Yeah, this one just had the RF switch and that plug became standard for a while. That was the audio video cable plug-in, that black thing. This one decided to get rid of the RF switch and have the only black thing. But of course the black thing had a plug-in for the, the coaxial cable or whatever the hell that you could screw on the back of your television. Do you remember those? Those are good old days. I love the old system. That's why I have so many of them. And here it is. The original Sega Genesis, 16-bit. High definition graphics. They didn't even have HD TV back then. But if you could actually get a SCART cable adapter and plug this into an HD TV, it looks phenomenal. It's just a little bit more of an expensive setup. But has volume controls for headphones, the reset button. And if you could buy this adapter, you could play Sega Master games. You can put the cartridge in right there. And then there's even special cards that, why is it focused on the Sega Genesis logo right there? I don't know, but see, you could play like old school Sega Master games on a Genesis with this big ass freaking adapter. Holy crap. How do you get this off? There it is, the original Sega Genesis. So cool that I had to buy two. Another multiple console I own. This one doesn't have high definition graphics. This one, I think the power or the reset or something's kind of off on it, so I don't use it. This is the one I do use. And this is the Sega Genesis version 1. Because later on they decided to make a cheaper version because they realized who the hell's going to fucking plug in headphones. So they made this version. And if you can kind of compare it, it's smaller. Mainly by width. Look like it's on a fucking vegan diet or something. That's a Sega Genesis version 2 that they came out, The system lasted a while. And I think the Sega Genesis 2 could not play certain games, if I remember right. But there was one that could not play a lot of certain games, like Virtual Fighter and stuff. And that is a Sega Genesis 3. Version 3. Look how little this thing is, dude, compared to like the original Sega Genesis. It's little. Fucking had a sliding power controls. Yeah. And for some reason, like an idiot, I have to own all three. Plus an extra version 1. So those are my Sega Genesis consoles. Now this is a Sega Saturn. This bombed hard. This was the equivalent to a Sony PlayStation 1. This came out during the time the N64 came out. Sony's very first console came out. And this was like an equivalent, a CD-based thing that was more powerful than the PlayStation 1. But the reason why it was more powerful is because they added a bunch of shit at the end. But for some reason, by throwing a bunch of random shit that's not needed, it made video games so hard to program for this that developers just said, screw it, the PlayStation's much easier, let's all make our games for that. And this one, I think when they released the Sega Saturn, they already announced the Dreamcast was in the works, so that's like, well, why are you going to buy this if there's another system coming in? Sega. Awesome fucking software and hardware, but your dumb mistakes killed your hardware business. This is an N64. This came after the Super Nintendo. Probably, I think that was more powerful than the Sega and the PlayStation. However, Nintendo decided to do cartridge-based games that look like this. And basically it made the games, more expensive, a lot more cost to manufacture, and it limited the data horribly. This one's a modded Nintendo 64 that could output RGB signal for SCART cables. And this is my original Nintendo 64 that when I was a kid. I still have it. Still works perfectly. The only bad thing about Nintendo 64, they made it look much better than the Sony by making it stand out on old televisions. But plug this into an HD TV and it is blurry as fuck. Even with RGB, like clearer signal, you can't do shit about the blurry graphics. It looks fucking horrible. I mean, play this on an old TV, not an HD TV. Son, can you put your lunchbox away? But Mom, that's not a lunchbox. That's my Gamecube. Then why does it have a handle? I don't know, Mom. I don't know. This system was awesome. I don't care what anyone says. It has a lot of great games. More powerful than the PlayStation 2. Not as powerful as the original Xbox. But because Nintendo once again decided to make tiny ass discs, fucked everything up, and they didn't want to jump on the online bandwagon. Shit, the Dreamcast did. I need to get a Dreamcast. I probably won't play, but I need to get a Dreamcast. I still have my Game Boy Advance, or my Game Boy player, still attached to this. This is my original GameCube when I was a kid. Good games on it. Super Smash Brothers, awesome. Nintendo almost made a comeback, but then the fucking a cube. Who designed this shit? Why is there a handle? Are you gonna take this to your friend's house for fucking multiplayer? Nintendo, I love you, but let's just hope the Nintendo NX is an awesome system. Wii. What? Nintendo Wii. This had a few very good games, awesome games. Keyword few. For the amount of games this came out, this was Nintendo's. Because when you look at the NES, they had a seal of approval. This is approved by Nintendo to be quality. This came out, this had so much fucking shovelware that no one bought. I mean, everyone bought it because they wanted to play Wii Sports and they wanted to be hip. Ooh, casual games, that didn't exist. And then like a few years later, smartphones, and it killed this system. This system was graphically about as powerful as the GameCube. I mean, it looks better and it's sleeker and it takes up less space, but Nintendo, what the fuck were you thinking? Ooh, motion controls. Ooh, blah, 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 blah. It worked. It made you so much money. I don't know how. You fucking lucked out, but don't do this shit with the Nintendo NX. The PlayStation 2, the first Sony system I owned. I was loyal to Nintendo. I never bought the Genesis when I was a kid. I never bought any systems besides Nintendo until the GameCube came out and I realized Nintendo isn't with the program. So I bought this system after I bought the Xbox because I wanted to give the Xbox a try. Why do I still have this plugged in? I haven't played this in like a year and a half. It's wasting power. But yeah, this was a good system. And the reason why it was awesome is because kids couldn't afford a DVD player and this could play DVDs. But let's talk about the other system I bought after the GameCube and before this. Pardon ma mess, I am under construction. The original Xbox. Now this here is really fucking cool because I actually have it modded. And I have a shit ton of emulated games. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Atari, all the good games. Shit ton of games. And the original Xbox was a good system. The original controllers were bulky as shit, and they kind of fixed them. Halo was awesome. This was a good system. Puppy monkey baby. And that's the second one. I was going to mod it myself. But this one I bought at the flea market that was sitting in the sun for like $40. I'm a fucking idiot. The thing makes so much noise, I'm afraid it's going to catch on fire, so I'm probably just going to throw that one away. I know where I can get plenty of older Xboxes, and I'll probably mod one of these days. But that one, that's just an extra console.
Check it out. Oh yes, quit it.
Shut up, Rambo. On top of my fridge, I have my Xbox 360. As you can tell, I unplugged it a little bit ago. I don't play it because I have an Xbox One. But that's my Xbox 360. That's like my 7th or 8th fucking console because of fucking Red Ring of Death problem or some other disc problem. God damn. Fucking went through so many of those. I bought 2 of them afterwards. I could have kept turning them in. But I'm like, fuck it. And then I got like, that's my second, like the newer model 360s. Ah, that was a pain in the ass. Another unplugged system is my PlayStation 3. My original one I sold because I needed the money. And this one's like the newer one. Has like the slide top. Too lazy to get it off. But the original one was freaking huge and it was backwards compatible with PS2. This one isn't. But I bought it off a friend because I figure, hey, I collect consoles. I'm a big boy. And here is my Xbox One 1 terabyte with the warning label still on it because I'm too lazy to take it off. And, you know, good system. Can't believe they're coming out with like an Xbox Neo or Project Neo, more powerful 4K. This system barely was out for like 2 years. But they made all these underpowered, just like the PlayStation 4. Now, when it comes to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, some fanboys are going to be pissed at me, but I don't give a shit. The better system, in my opinion, just because I play it more, is the PlayStation 4. And, you know, it's more powerful for now. It looks like the Xbox Neo is going to be more powerful than... Is it PlayStation Neo or PlayStation... Fuck. PlayStation 4 is my favorite system of this console generation. Now, there is another console that has good games, but once again fucked up the online and made a fucking gimmicky controller that this time didn't pay out. The Nintendo Wii U. It is a good system, but if you want to play online games with anyone, fuck it, because these friend codes are annoying as shit. How many friends do I have on PlayStation? 20 or 30? How many friends do I have on Xbox? 30 or 40? How many friends do I have on Nintendo? One, and I haven't even talked to that fucker in over a year. I wonder what he's doing. Shout out to Video Psychic. But yeah, Nintendo with your next system, please don't fuck up. So these are some of the handhelds that I found in my collection. I'm missing some. But oh well, let's just go ahead and get started. In this corner of my room, I have my Virtual Boy. I'm not going to dig it out because it sucks. This is the original Game Boy, and I believe this is the original one when I had as a kid. Still works, but the screen was so fucking hard to see. Don't worry, if you can't see shit on the Game Boy, you have the Light Boy, which it put like a tiny little light on it. Oh, horrible. Thank goodness for LED screens. And this one was a little easier to see. It was like darker, but still kind of hard to see. The Game Boy Pocket. Basically a little smaller. And then they came out with the Game Boy Color. You know, now that you could have like Game Boy graphics, but with color. Ooh, technology. And then there's the Game Boy Advance. And that one was like Super Nintendo type graphics. And it was a pretty good handheld. And it was the last Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance. Now, there is a thing called Game Boy Advance SP. It's like square, you could flip it up. The top had the screen, the bottom had like the controls. I had 2 of them, a Nintendo one and like a classic silver. For the life of me, I can't find them. So I'm not going to include them in this video. Oh, well, sorry. The original Nintendo DS... I remember it came with this strap, and basically like for Super Mario DS, there was no like joystick, like it's just a fucking pad and controls, very basic. So you had to take that plastic thing, wrap it around your thumb, and put it on the touch screen. Just to do, like, you know, have Mario move around slow and accurate. It was stupid. The Nintendo DS Lite. Smaller, and the screen was a lot brighter. See, like, the screen on this one was kind of eh. Like, they improved, you know, slowly over the years. This one was like, ooh, so much light. This one, ooh, so much light. Huh? This one was good. Now, there is a DS... There's a DS Lite. I think there's a DSi or something that had, like, wireless. You could download shit. I never got that one. I'm thinking of picking it up just so I can say I have it. And then the 3DS, which I'm not going to open it because it's on. And I think that says that I have a download or a message or something stupid. The 3DS is... Let's have, like, you know... Is it Nintendo 64 type graphics? It's better. But, ooh, 3D. Nintendo, stop with your gimmicks. You're killing yourself. I mean, no one gives a shit about the 3D gimmick. I mean... The reason why it's selling so well is because it's a handheld and has Pokemon on it. And there is a 3DS XL I might get, I don't know. And then there's a new 3DS XL, which I'm actually thinking of getting, just turning this one off, who cares. Getting a 3DS XL, transferring all my shit since you could do that. So anyways, that's kind of my video game consoles, plus a few handhelds as a bonus. What do you think? I know console-wise, I want to get the original PlayStation 1. I've never owned it. And I want to get a Dreamcast. Those would be cool. I'll probably add those to my collection down the road. Thank you for watching. Jekyll Knight signing out. And on top of my Lego plantation, I used to fucking love Legos when I was a kid. Anyone else love Legos? Or on that heart. It was for my love. There's a girl I had a crush on in high school. And that if that heart ever broke, that means my heart would break for her. And I super glued that together. Oh, fuck that bitch. Oh, I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want Lisa's name on this video. But anyways,